Hi, Scarlet Marvel here. Writer and director James Gunn has brought his MCU Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy to a close with the recent release of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. After watching it, I can say this is easily one of Marvel's best films yet. James Gunn masterfully weaves a satisfying conclusion for the team while unfolding the tragic origin of Rocket Raccoon. There are so many elements that make this film work, so join me to discover exactly why I think this film is so amazing. For this review, I'll once again be using a quantitative and categorical method, which basically means I'll be reviewing 10 elements of the film and giving them a score out of 10 to come up with an overall movie score out of 100. But before we get started, I want to hear from you. So let me know what you thought of the movie down in the comments below.
Well, I didn't ask to get made. I didn't ask to be torn apart and put back together over and over and turned into some little monster.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is made up of two parallel and complementary stories. In the present, the Guardians work together to save Rocket's life after he's fatally wounded, while in the past, we learn the tragic origin of Rocket as one of the High Evolutionary's cruel animal experiments. These stories blend together perfectly, allowing our emotions to slowly grow as we learn more of the past context for the present-day situation the Guardians find themselves in. The story cleverly parallels the tragic fates of Rocket's first found family against his current found family, the Guardians, risking their lives to save his. At the end, both storylines are resolved as Rocket and the Guardians get justice by defeating the High Evolutionary. This is a dark and powerful story that's very effective at stirring up intense feelings of sadness and anger, but also joy, as the heroes' victories are felt more deeply after their tragic struggles. It's also very funny thanks to James Gunn's trademark humor, making for an emotional roller coaster that constantly keeps the audience on the edge of their seats. Apart from the main stories that focus on Rocket, each of the Guardians received their own final arc, turning the film into a very satisfying conclusion to the overall trilogy, even cleverly addressing how the Guardians were impacted by the events of the previous Avengers films. The movie also finds space to introduce new characters and concepts that perfectly fit into the story of the film, adding to the movie's themes and leaving the door open for the Guardians' story to continue in the future through a variety of interesting directions. I would consider this to be the best overall story in the Guardians trilogy, as it succeeds at fully integrating the audience into the Guardians family by taking us through their most intimate adventure and allowing us to experience the wide range of emotions alongside them. So, I give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 a story score of 10 out of 10.
As a child, my father would have Gamora and me battle one another in training. Every time my sister prevailed, my father would replace a piece of me with machinery.
This movie's greatest strength is the depth of its characters and their relationships, in addition to the satisfying conclusions to each of their stories. Rocket is the film's standout as its protagonist, with the context of his tragic origin enhancing each of his previous appearances. The loss of his first found family, Lila, Teefs, and Floor, at the hands of their creator, the High Evolutionary, is a powerful scene, explaining much of his personality. It's beautifully followed up when Rocket finds closure with his first family, during a near-death experience. This allowed him to finally embrace his past, proclaiming himself Rocket Raccoon during a satisfying final confrontation against the High Evolutionary, alongside his new family, the Guardians. Rocket's story fittingly ends with him as the new leader of the Guardians, after being emphasized as the heart and soul of the team. Star-Lord and Gamora have an interesting journey together, as their romance was central to the previous Guardians films. But, with the original Gamora dead, their new relationship became a fascinating metaphor for people falling out of love and learning to respect each other after discovering the ways they've changed. The new Gamora is able to connect with the Guardians, but she ultimately forges her own path, separate from the pressure to be someone she's not. Star-Lord overcomes his trauma with the Guardians' help, and stops running from his past, returning to Earth to be with his grandfather. Karen Gillan continues to give one of the MCU's best performances as Nebula, who demonstrates her immense growth as a hero and leader. Her close bond with Rocket provides some of the film's best subtle moments, and in a fitting conclusion, Nebula decides to lead a refuge for the beings experimented on by the High Evolutionary, letting her provide the compassion and care that she was once denied. Drax ultimately remains with Nebula as a father figure for the children at the refuge. This is a perfect ending for him, after the movie brilliantly revealed that his humor is not stupidity. It's his way of making people happy, something he learned as a father to the daughter he tragically lost. Additionally, Drax with Mantis are a highlight of the film as one of Marvel's funniest duos. This movie gives Mantis more to do than ever before, as she constantly demonstrates her worth, despite being undervalued by the team. Her most powerful moment is when she befriends the monstrous obelisks, proving that her compassion may be the greatest superpower on the team. Ultimately, Mantis embarks on a journey of self-discovery, finally searching for her individual place in the world. Groot didn't do much in this movie, but what he did do was epic, as his new body allowed for creative and visually dynamic action sequences. He also became a metaphor for the Guardians' united strength, as he reached his maximum potential thanks to the team collectively raising him. So it makes sense that Groot remained a Guardian alongside Rocket at the end of the film. The final team members were Kraglin and Cosmo, mainly a comedic relief duo. Kraglin had a mini arc learning to guide Yondu's arrow, and Cosmo played a pivotal role in the final battle, while also connecting to the film's focus on animal rights, with the pair remaining on the team at the end of the film. This movie features Adam Warlock's debut, and his story is a clever parallel to that of the original Guardians. Like the original Guardians, Adam's initially immature and on the bad side, but after experiencing loss, he learns to fight for good alongside a new family. This calls back to how the Guardians began, and shows us that the team will live on through the new heroes that they inspire. The High Evolutionary is the perfect final villain for this trilogy, as his destructive, unending search for perfection contrasts brilliantly against the Guardians, whose imperfections help them find family and strength. The villain's violence towards animals makes him possibly the most hateable villain in the MCU, making his defeat incredibly satisfying. Chukwudi Iwuji deserves immense praise for his incredible performance that brings this impactful villain to life. For all of these amazing, well-developed characters, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 easily earns a character score of 10 out of 10.
If I touch someone, I can feel their feelings.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 brought Marvel's Cosmic Corner to life in a grand way, thanks in large part to the stellar work of the design team on the characters and settings. The Guardians' use of matching uniforms is an inspired design choice that pays homage to the team's comic counterparts, while also serving a thematic purpose, showing how the team is more united than ever before. Nebula and Groot deserve specific shoutouts, as their new designs allowed for exciting action sequences, while also highlighting how the pair have evolved due to the influence of their team. New characters Adam Warlock and the High Evolutionary also have great designs that reflect their comic counterparts, while remaining modern and relevant to the movie's story. The High Evolutionary's design is particularly interesting as he evokes royalty, but there are also hints at the mask that hides his imperfections, thanks to the excellent makeup and prosthetics. The many animal experiments of the film, including Lila, Teefs, Floor, the citizens of Counter-Earth, and Rocket himself, are brilliantly designed in ways that evoke terror and sympathy in the audience due to their disturbing bodily manipulations. Lastly, the film's various settings are also beautifully and cleverly designed in distinct ways that keep each location unique and thematically relevant to the overall story, with Counter-Earth, OrgoCorp, and Nowhere being particularly noteworthy. Overall, for the film's ease in transporting the audience into its sci-fi world through its bold design choices, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 gets a design score of 10 out of 10.
I'm Groot.
A big part of this film's emotional stakes depends on the audience's ability to connect to Rocket and the other CGI animals, so this movie's success largely depends on the work of the special effects team. Rocket has been a well-animated character since his debut in the first Guardians film, but Volume 3 went one step further by showing Rocket's transition from baby to adult. The special effects excelled here, as each step of his growth was incredibly realistic, and the evolution of his pain and joy was clear from the subtlest of animations, giving him constant humanity blended with animal-like mannerisms and reactions. The same can be said of Rocket's friends, Lila, Teefs, and Floor. who come to life in an eerie fashion, while also maintaining a deep humanity full of joy and pain. Much of this emotion comes through from their eyes, which are beautifully animated to resemble the way that real animals express emotion. Other CGI characters like Cosmo and Groot are also animated excellently. Cosmo moves exactly as a real dog would, even when performing ridiculous tasks like playing poker. And Groot looks incredibly realistic, almost to the uncanny valley point. But he really shines in action sequences, where the special effects of his advanced powers make him look more epic than ever before. In fact, all of the action in the movie looks amazing, in large part due to special effects, especially in the film's third act. Nebula is animated particularly well in these scenes, taking full advantage of her unique physiology. It's clear that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 used special effects to their highest potential, earning the film a special effects score of 10 out of 10.
There are two types of beings in the universe, those who dance and those who do not.
For this category, I'll be going over the technical elements that didn't fit into the other categories. Starting with editing, the film was rather standard most of the time. Although one sequence, the initial battle against Adam Warlock, did feel choppy, making it difficult to decipher what was happening. This made for a slightly disorienting experience. Although, it's possible that this was on purpose to evoke the feeling of chaos that the characters were experiencing. There was also one outstanding moment, with regards to editing, towards the end of the film. This was the hallway action sequence, that showcased all of the Guardian skills in an epic battle that utilized slow-mo and clever transitions from character to character to really stand out as one of Marvel's all-time best action sequences. This movie's cinematography is quite good, with some absolutely stunning shots, although I do think that's potentially overshadowed by its predecessor, due in large part to the beautiful, unique visuals on Ego's planet in Volume 2. That being said, Volume 3 is no slouch here, utilizing its cinematography to evoke strong emotions, particularly through parts of Rocket's origin, and when new locations are introduced or changed. All things considered, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 gets a technical score of 8 out of 10.
Star-Lord.
Who?
Star-Lord, man. Legendary outlaw.
Despite having many amazing songs, the soundtrack of Guardians Volume 3, compared to its predecessors, felt a bit less memorable or consequential to the overall feel of the movie, being overshadowed by other elements of the film. However, there were two standout musical moments as exceptions. The first is at the start of the movie, where we're introduced to the Guardians in a sequence following Rocket and set to an acoustic version of Creep by Radiohead. This opening establishes a somber tone and Rocket as the protagonist, giving us a peek into his psyche. This is an excellent musical moment that works particularly well in contrast to the joyful openings of the past two Guardians movies. The second moment comes at the end of the film, where the Guardians celebrate their victory and go their separate ways in a sequence set to The Dog Days Are Over by Florence and the Machine. After all the darkness we experienced alongside the Guardians, this final scene is one of the most joyful and triumphant experiences I've ever had in a theater, thanks in part to the inspired song choice. This immersive scene brought tears of joy to my eyes, and it's quickly become one of my favorite musical moments in all of cinema. The movie's score worked quite well, but I was a bit disappointed by the lack of returning themes from previous films, which was likely due to a change in composers, although I was quite happy when the Guardians theme briefly returned during the final battle. The movie's sound design is noteworthy for how it helps bring the High Evolutionary's experiments to life through their unnatural robotic noises, with Floor's sound particularly sticking with me for the way her sweet voice contrasted with the eerie noises made by her mechanical legs. Overall, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3's sound was pretty good, with a few outstanding areas, resulting in a sound score of 9 out of 10.
I'm not trying to conquer the universe. I'm perfecting it.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is one of Marvel's most thematically rich films, as it explores a variety of mature themes, including animal abuse, trauma recovery, godhood, found family, perfection versus imperfection, and more. Animal abuse is the film's darkest and most uncomfortable theme, as many animals are killed or painfully manipulated, including Rocket in his tragic origin. These scenes are incredibly difficult to watch, but the violence doesn't feel gratuitous. Rather, it serves this movie's goal of pushing the audience to understand the repercussions of our actions towards animals. This becomes a message of animal rights, as at the film's conclusion, Rocket leads the Guardians in saving the animals enslaved by the High Evolutionary, treating them as equal to the humans they rescued. The movie clearly wants us to see all lives as having equal worth, a message made obvious by the metaphor of Counter-Earth, where a society of animals live exactly as humans do on our real Earth. As someone who has always believed in equal animal rights, I'm so grateful for this message's inclusion. The High Evolutionary represents several themes, as he becomes a godlike figure in order to create a perfect society by abusing animals. Through this villain, the movie brilliantly exposes some of humanity's darkest aspects. This contrasts perfectly with the Guardians, who embrace their imperfections to become stronger as a family, allowing them to defeat the villain, but leaving him alive, emphasizing the differences between them. Thanks to their united strength, the Guardians were each able to grow until they could seek out individual paths to overcome their traumas, causing the team to split, but having made a connection that will last forever. This beautifully shows the power of a found family, while also showing that sometimes we need to follow our own paths to heal. From a brief dive into the complex themes of Guardians Volume 3, it's clear that this film has the potential to deeply impact its audience. So, the movie earns a theme score of 10 out of 10.
I'm a warrior and an assassin. I do not dance.
James Gunn is the mastermind writer and director behind the entire Guardians trilogy, so it makes sense that Volume 3 is such a cohesive work of art that perfectly ties up the Guardians' overarching story. Gunn's vision in this movie shines clear as he focuses on Rocket's journey to create strong emotions in the audience, spread a meaningful message, and triumphantly conclude the Guardians' overall story, with each member of the team receiving their own final arc along the way. This film evolves the Guardians' tone, becoming one of Marvel's most mature, disturbing, and darkest films so far. Yet, through careful balance, it's able to retain the franchise's trademark humor and levity. This allows the audience to intensely experience the entire spectrum of emotions, making us feel deeply immersed. Although, there were a couple moments of whiplash where the tone seemed to flip too quickly. Despite this, every moment and element in the film has a clear purpose in advancing the plot, developing one of the many themes, or eliciting strong emotions from the audience. This is easily one of Marvel's most personality-filled projects, as Gunn's touch can be felt in every aspect of the movie, making for a thoroughly unique cinematic experience that is dark, funny, inspiring, fresh, and new. Overall, James Gunn was incredibly successful in concluding the Guardian's journey, while exposing the darkness of humanity in an effortlessly entertaining and incredibly intimate story that establishes Gunn as one of the most creative and thoughtful directors in the comic book movie space. For all these reasons, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 earns a direction score of 10 out of 10.
It's called a Zune. It's what everybody's listening to on Earth nowadays. It's got 300 songs on it.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is already creating a solid legacy for itself, as it's being hailed as one of Marvel's best movies, and as a return to form for the franchise. As an amazing conclusion to the story of the beloved original Guardians, this film allows the Guardians trilogy to leave a large impact on pop culture, as one of comic book movies' best trilogies, and potentially one of cinema's best trilogies. The movie also represents a turning point for comic book movies, as it marks Gunn's final Marvel film before moving to DC. It's still uncertain if this movie will succeed at the box office, but it is off to a pretty good start, and if it does succeed, it could reignite interest in Marvel movies after Quantumania's disappointing performance. However, I think this film will suffer in rewatchability compared to its predecessors, due to how disturbing and difficult to watch it can be, with many already skipping out on watching it for that exact reason. The film's ending is both conclusive and open, allowing for its characters to return in a variety of new ways, making this film a pivotal transition point for Marvel's cosmic side. The new Guardians team, led by Rocket, confirms the continuation of the franchise, and the roster is made up almost entirely of animals and beings created by the High Evolutionary, meaning the themes of this movie will live on through this team. In the post-credits, the legendary Star-Lord is confirmed to return, meaning the future of the Guardians is likely already in development. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has secured a positive legacy, but it's still hard to tell how big its impact will be, with its dark nature and Marvel's current reputation potentially working against it. So the movie earns a legacy score of 9 out of 10.
I knew you believe I'm good daughter.
If you've seen my tier list of Marvel superhero teams, you'd know that the first Guardians film is one of the main reasons for my overall interest in Marvel. So I have a very strong attachment to this team, and I'm always excited to spend more time with them. With Volume 3, I didn't expect how intensely emotional I'd get. This movie made me cry several times, and I'm not really a crier, with very few movies bringing me to tears. I'm a huge animal lover, so a film heavily involving animal abuse was bound to greatly affect me. But the dark moments made the bright ones feel so much stronger. Some of the tears I cried were joyful, which is rare for me, and made me realize just how deeply I love this team. Rocket's story was the highlight for me, as he's my favorite Guardian, and I've always related to him. Witnessing his origin was terrifying, making the moment where he defeats the High Evolutionary and finally embraces being Rocket Raccoon one of the most satisfying scenes I've ever watched. Every member of the team had amazing moments that made me love them even more than I already did. By the film's end, I truly felt like I was a part of their family, especially when we could finally understand Groot. I absolutely loved the film's main message of treating animals with compassion and as equal to humans, considering this is a topic I'm quite passionate about. This movie has had an immense impact on me, and I can't stop thinking about it, even about a week after watching. This has solidified the Guardians trilogy as my all-time favorite film trilogy. And after growing alongside them for nearly a decade, it's bittersweet to see them go. But I'm so thankful for having been a part of their journey, and I'm hopeful that one day we'll meet again. With all this being said, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 easily earns a personal enjoyment score of 10 out of 10. Even looking past my love for Marvel, this is an incredibly well-made film with a lot of heart that serves a deeper purpose than a standard superhero film. This movie is very dark, but it's also funny and offers some of the most joyous moments I've experienced in the theater. The only people I'd warn against watching the film are those who are particularly sensitive to animal abuse. Otherwise, I think anyone can enjoy it, and more importantly, learn from it. James Gunn has truly closed out this franchise in a magnificent and satisfying way, and I'm so grateful for this film's existence. Thanks for joining me for this review, and remember to let me know what you thought of the movie down in the comments below. And if you want more Guardians content, check out my history of Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy video right over here. And if you want to watch another movie review, check out my review of the Super Mario Bros. Movie right over here. Otherwise, check out any of the other Marvelous videos up on this channel, and have a great day. See ya!